I'm filmmaker Ben Zand, and I'm in the English countryside, waiting to meet a young British guy who calls himself an incel. But I'm a little bit worried that he's not going to show up. I'm waiting for a text from him to tell me that he's arrived. Incel means involuntarily celibate. Essentially, virgins who can't find someone to have sex with them. They're known to hold extreme views, often hating women, and very rarely speaking to the media. Oh, there he is. He says he's here. Let's see. They spend most of their lives in hiding and don't want their identities shown. So we're calling this man D. Tell me a bit about yourself.
I don't know what there is to say. I'm a human being just like you.
Would you call yourself an incel?
I would, yeah.
What is an incel?
They're just angry and frustrated young men who are in the position where they have convinced themselves that they are unable to ever be able to have sex. Or they see women as being this kind of different species that is either going to reject them anyway or is going to cheat on them anyway. To me, it's just accepting the genetic truth of being a born inferior person.
The incel movement is growing. On one of the most extreme incel forums, there are 18,000 members, with around 2,500 here in the UK.
Name me one example, one time, where a woman has genuinely got with 5'4" fucking balding, fat, ugly man.
Online, a community of men think women are the enemy and egg each other on to commit acts of violence. And even murder.
Any of the Stacys who do not wish to give their love and affection to the incels.
They're a target as well.
Yes.
To be killed.
Yes.
It's an underground, dangerous community that few are allowed to enter, especially filmmakers. But after nearly a year of trying, I've finally made it inside. The world of incels exists mostly online.
On the internet, you can get any kind of content you want. Whatever you want to choose to believe that serves you.
D is in his early 20s. He lives with his parents and doesn't have a job.
This is an interesting one. Women gain sexual pleasure from the pain that is inflicted upon them.
Okay, so it starts talking about Joan of Arc, a historical foid.
What's a foid?
Means woman. It's just a derogatory word for a woman.
I suppose it's the deeper question around it of that women can only derive pleasure from pain. Do you believe that as a concept?
I don't know, because I'm not a woman. It's essentially discussing hypotheticals.
It doesn't have to be hypothetical, though, because you could just ask a woman.
Well, the idea is that women aren't very honest about that kind of thing.
These views are obviously absurd, but he is a typical incel. He's lonely, was bullied in school, and spent most of his days online. He has no friends in the real world. The conspiracies he believes are part of a wider incel ideology, found on websites with tens of thousands of members.
Women in the workplace, that's not good. Their freedom is literally driving civilization down to the ground.
The ideology reinforces a brutal idea of traditional gender roles and tells men that if they're not good-looking by the community standards, they're genetically inferior and essentially pointless, because the incel vision of the world is one in which looks are everything and women are the ultimate villain. And the threat of the movement is that this online hate does spill out into the real world. It's even landed right here, on the streets of Britain. In a quiet Plymouth suburb, a man called Jake Davison spent his time posting online, venting his anger at the world, taking aim at society, his own mum, and the women who'd ignored him.
just looking at a girl, I could feel it, you know? Just
Then, in August of 2021, it all led to a moment of horrific violence. In just 15 minutes, he killed 5 people, including his own mother.
Davison was the holder of a firearms license. How he got that, now the subject of the police inquiry.
Finding anyone associated with the Jake Davison case is difficult. It's still raw for a lot of people. But I've managed to track down someone who was a moderator on the forum Jake Davison was using just days before the shooting. These forums are for incels, moderated by incels.
I can't really talk to people without them thinking I'm some kind of terrorist.
The moderator is an incel living in Southern Europe. He doesn't want to reveal his identity. It's the first time he or anyone connected to this forum has spoken to the media.
I actually came across him a few weeks before he committed the shootings.
Did he ever say anything that was kind of suggestive that he was actually going to do anything about that?
He expressed fascination for guns. He was saying something about incels being discriminated against. I have seen in many communities people trying to be the biggest incel.
What, so you think now it's getting worse?
It's really bad because they ban the most moderate incels and they leave the extremists. Those people really feel hatred for the world. They see the actions of those murderers like Jake Davison as justice.
Incels spend their time on a mixture of bespoke websites, image boards, forums, and messaging platforms. Many of them have no friends in the real world. Their only community is online. But the moderator spoke of a community that was getting more extreme. This was backed up by recent research from the Center for Counter and Digital Hate, suggesting members on one incel forum spoke about rape every 29 minutes. The guys I was speaking to spent most of every day on these sites. I want to know why.
I never intended to be part of the world of inceldom. It's not like I set out to choose that community.
Dee, who I met earlier, has never had a proper conversation with a woman in real life, other than his mum. This is also the first time he's left home to meet someone since he left school years ago.
Yeah, so tell me a bit about your personal journey into the world of inceldom. You know, how did it begin?
It starts in childhood. It starts with living in a place where it's difficult to find friends and have a real-life social group. I began using the internet when I was very young. I was a YouTube addict, really. I think I've spent something on the magnitude of 10,000 hours on the internet.
Do you have any real-life friends?
No, I do not.
Don't have any?
No.
Why not try and meet people?
If you have no mutual friends with anyone, it's near impossible. And I'm currently on benefits. I'm not in education, employment, or training. And so people look to the internet for answers. Why am I struggling to get women? Why don't I have any friends? Why are things the way they are? And I mean, personally, I tried to overdose when I was 12 years old. And then I tried again at 15. And most of the people I know have also tried to take their own lives at multiple points.
So far, while investigating incels, I've found that there are thousands of men in the UK on the most extreme incel forums. And their entry point seems to be something called the Black Pill, an ideology that Dee, the incel I'm meeting in the English countryside, has signed up to.
So if you look at just this graph, to get the same level of attention a 2 or 3 out of 10 woman gets, you have to be a 10 out of 10 male yourself. And if this is your only knowledge, your only source of information on what the world is like, then that's your view of reality.
So unless you're a 10 out of a man, you're going to be struggling. Is it true that looks are all that matters?
People are trapped in their own ideologies and they're stuck in their own information silos.
The Black Pill is an increasingly mainstream conspiracy theory that was the starting point for Dee and a lot of incels. It lies to its followers and tells them that only extremely good-looking men have any success with women and life. And if you don't fit that criteria, women will not only ignore you, but they'll fear you. It encourages anyone who doesn't have the right jaw shape or who isn't tall enough to give up. They'll never be the men at the top of the hierarchy, an alpha male, people who incels like D call Chad.
Well, Chad is meant to be like the alpha male. You have the typical like alpha, beta male, and then like sigma male is like on the side, and you have a gamma male. And
what's the lowest?
I think the lowest is like a omega male or something, and it's like the obese fat person that lives in their house 24/7 and that doesn't shower or doesn't do anything. And so this video here is a Chad posts 1 minute of his face staring at a camera and gets 500,000 views, with every woman thirsting in the comment section.
Can I read what it says? It says, "It's so fucking over. Every girl wants Chad." How do you feel about that?
I know it's unfair and it's unjust, but the world is unfair and the world is unjust.
There's a huge amount of content online dedicated to the black pill. It's an idea promoted by hundreds of social media accounts and forums. And within it, there even seems to be a solution for incels, something called looks maxing.
So the black pill ideology essentially says that your looks, specifically your face, are going to have an enormous impact on your life.
I've managed to track down one of the UK's most prominent black pill influencers. On Instagram, he promotes extreme techniques, all to try and get closer to Chad.
So all the women in the world want the best looking men. If you understand the truth, you can then start to take actions to use it in your favor. It's not uncommon for people in the looks maxing industry to get a hammer and think, okay, what part of my face would I like to improve? My cheekbones, my jaw, my chin, my orbitals, but just up and down, and the same with the brow bone, up and down, almost sculpting their face out of marble, and then, yeah, your bones just grow.
I don't know if that's entirely true. You know, I've fractured my knee, for example.
Precisely.
My knee is vulnerable to other breaks. So, but how do you know your bones growing and your face just isn't swelling up because of you're hitting yourself with a hole?
I mean, swelling does certainly stay around for a few days, but...
Have you done it, though?
I've done it, yeah.
What took you to the point of hitting yourself in the face with a hammer?
It was just results. I wanted to be good looking, quickly, fast. It's like walking down the street and you're just seeing train wreck after train wreck after train wreck, because I know what good looking people look like, just like that. The best looking people in society, they're always treated the best. You just got to open your eyes and you'll see it.
But I suppose attraction isn't just appearance. There's times I've met people who objectively are attractive and have absolutely no social skills whatsoever, and that completely changes everything about them.
The exception doesn't prove the rule, and you're right, there are plenty of exceptions of people that aren't necessarily good looking. Unfortunately, you're never going to know that about someone unless you find them physically attractive. You'll never go and talk to them. If you're ugly, I don't want to look at you.
Unsurprisingly, a lot of what he's saying here is not supported by science.
To kind of make someone feel that they are so not valuable and that all value is based in your face is incredibly depressing. You know, when you think of cases like Jake Davidson or kind of extreme ends of it, they did very much seem to believe this ideology, believe they were ugly. Do you not worry that you are kind of peddling those ideas?
No, because I always have hope. I will never say to someone it's utterly over, which I'm trying to, like, put out there. You can make your life better. You can just change.
Because it feels like there's, like, an element of, like, you know, I'm not a psychologist, but, like, body dysmorphia to it.
100%. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You'll find out what black pill is and the truth of it, and you'll wallow in the dark, or you'll think, you know what, this is how it is. I can use this to my advantage.
This dark view of the world manipulates young men and convinces them that if they don't fit the right criteria, they've got nothing left to live for. And one incel embodies this more than any other. On the incel forums, his initials come up again and again, ER. He's the most violent and misogynistic incel of all, Elliot Rodger. And just a warning, what he's about to say may be hard to listen to.
And I will slaughter every single spoiled, stuck-up, blonde I see inside there.
In 2014, incel Elliot Rodger attacked the university campus in California with a handgun, targeting young women, eventually killing 6 students and injuring another 14. In the dark world of inceldom, the attack is celebrated. Elliot Rodger is now held up as some kind of deity. His initials capitalized in words to honor his horrible actions, and the concept of doing an Elliot Rodger, the ambition for many who use these sites. I'd come across one guy who had shown a real interest in Elliot Rodger online. He's an aspiring musician who'd written a song about Elliot Rodger that seemed to honor his attack. On a warm summer's day in Camden, he agreed to meet me, and he was happy to show his face. His name is Tuna. How would you kind of describe your life in London? You know, what's going on?
Chaos.
How come?
I couldn't really put myself in words. Just some guy trying to figure himself out, and it's hard. See, I was a kid who didn't have a life. It was school to home, so I just spent all my time on the computer.
What was the type of stuff you were looking at online?
It was like, oh, if you're under 6 feet tall and you come 10 feet next to a girl, she'll call the cops on you and then pull her gun out and then shoot you down or something. It was fucking funny. You see stuff like that every day. It revives your brain.
Were you believing that stuff?
Yeah, I believed that, and slowly I just lost hope for life.
Like everyone I'd met so far, Tuna was lonely and seemed to get a real sense of community from the forums he spent his days on. It was the one place he felt people paid attention to him. And like many others, he had interests that were very difficult to understand, like a fascination with incels who kill.
If you look at a lot of mass murderers and serial killers or fucked up people, they were mostly lonely men who were outcasts from society.
You know, people like, say, Elliot Rodgers, how do you think it is someone like him ends up in that scenario?
I kind of read his manifesto for like 20 pages. He's actually a surprisingly good writer. You know, he talked about making others feel his agony and stuff. And I'll be honest, I've entertained the idea of shooting a place up. I mean, I make music and I fit the type, so it'd be cool, but obviously I didn't go ahead with it because I don't want to kill anyone. Imagine if you had a guy who made music who won a shooting spree. I mean, his music would be listened to, you know?
Just a heads up, what you're about to hear is so offensive, it may be distressing for some people.
Actually, I have a song about shooting up a school, which is in very bad taste. I can play it if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it because it's in fucking terrible taste.
Explain the kind of context about it a bit.
Well, I actually wrote it after I read about Elliot Rodger's manifesto.
Okay.
So it was kind of inspired by that.
It's interesting inspiration.
Wow. It's a good song, though.
What I made out was bang, bang when I...
Hit the scene, bang, bang, they were just 16.
I suppose what made you, because I guess, you know...
It's funny.
There's a lot of people walking past, and I doubt they would ever imagine someone would be playing a song about a man who, you know, killed a lot of people. Explain the rationale.
It's not about that, it was inspired by it.
I suppose even inspired by, I mean, no. I suppose explain the rationale.
Rationale, it's in the lyrics. I'll just tell you the lyrics. I want to make you suffer, my world is black. The way you push me down, I'll push you back. No one knows my name till I get on Channel 8. Catch me tomorrow live, CCTV footage online. It's pretty self-explanatory.
I'm surprised, I guess, that you wrote a song about Elliot Rodgers killing people, you know. I know
it is not about Elliot Rodgers.
It was, you know, ultimately. I mean, it inspired or about him very similar things. If you're taking words directly out of the manifesto, I mean, I guess, like, you know, it's...
Again, I'm a young guy. I'm supposed to piss people like you off, you know?
It's not really about pissing me off. It's more a reflection of yourself, you know, in the sense of why would you do that? You know, I'm not going home thinking about you writing an Elliot Rodgers song. You've written a song, you know, it's like...
Not Elliot Rodgers' song. It was inspired by it.
It is a bit shocking, and I don't buy the argument of kind of... It's funny, because, like, funny to who? I mean, why find that funny?
Well,
just,
apparently it's funny to me and some other people.
So many guys seem to feel an affinity to that idea of getting their own back. And you have so many young, vulnerable guys feeling like they're outcasts of society. And if they think that's the answer, it is a scary time.
To properly understand the darkness of this community and what was being said on it, we need to enter the darkest corners of the internet. To do that, I've enlisted the help of a hacker. Solomon Gilbert has worked alongside the UK's National Crime Agency. He spent the last few months working with me, infiltrating the biggest incel forum of all, one we've decided not to name. Just a heads up, what he discovered is shocking and will be distressing for some people.
So where we focused the most on was areas of the internet where a lot of the core incel groups resided. We gathered as much information as possible about their activity online. Based on around 18,000 members, we found approximately 2,000 to 3,000 incels in the UK. It's grown super, super quickly. And it's becoming more violent.
But what's been your experience as you've trawled through these sites?
Women hate. They are posting real-world videos of women being killed. This is a woman being beheaded by a machete. This is someone being beaten and then set on fire, having petrol poured over them. And then this particular person, it's a real video of someone trapped in a large plastic polythene container having the air taken out of it.
Oh my God.
And these are then...
And what's the reaction to that type of content on those forums?
Celebratory. These guys live this day in, day out, day in, day out. You know, the more times you see videos of women being killed or a live real-time video of a woman being suffocated, suddenly you're the odd one out for feeling you know, the sort of extreme personal reaction that you should be feeling.
It is a radicalization technique, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I found it hard to take in what Solomon had shown me. The darker forums seemed to be breeding grounds for potential killers, with an obsession for videos showing women being brutally murdered. I'd managed to track down a young incel who spent the days watching these horrific videos. They were in the late teens and living in a small town in Eastern Europe.
I never know what to think of what they will look like, but my God, this looks entirely normal.
It was hard to believe a woman had turned up. M, as we're calling her, describes herself as a femcel.
Why a femcel and not just an incel?
Because it's just a different ideology, in my opinion. All men want to go after the most beautiful woman, and they don't actually want to go for the women who are, like, ugly, like myself.
Why do you think you are a femcel then? I mean, is it because you haven't had luck with guys or something? Like what?
Yeah, I've never had luck with the guys. No guys have ever asked me out. And the only time that guys would ask me out would be to mock me. And that was, like, the main source of, like, why I became a femcel, is because I felt like my attractiveness indicated my worth.
Have you ever had any kind of interactions with men? Have you, like, kissed a guy or anything?
No. I don't really believe that men will like give me chances.
The incel ideology had become so pervasive, even women were being drawn into it. Femcels see so-called ugly women as the bottom of the barrel and think men will never want them. It seemed like all these ideas surely couldn't work together, but somehow, for M, they did. And just like incels, the femcel world was full of dark obsessions.
I have a lot of weird interests. I watch gore.
What is gore? I'm not necessarily familiar with gore.
Okay, so most times gore, whenever people think about it, it's like blood, guts, and everything in between.
Like watching videos of gore? So like what, like of dead people?
Yeah, pretty much. It helps me a lot. Like, yeah, a lot of it is more like beheadings, you know, cartel stuff, or some really weird videos or more personal videos, like someone getting their head cut in half, you know.
The idea that M spent her days watching these videos was honestly terrifying. With a lot more to talk about, we headed back to the apartment I was staying in. I wanted to know why M was drawn to such horrific content.
Can you remember the first time you came across a gore video? Like, what was the...
It was my first video that I saw was very, like, high up in the community for gore. So it was a guy on the floor bleeding out. His face was cut off fully, and he didn't have hands. And I remember he was trying to fight against these people, and the people ended up, like, slitting his throat, which is a lot to take in at that time. But as time went on, I got desensitized, and I would have to say, like, it's not the worst thing I've seen.
Is there a correlation between being a femcel and having a fascination with gore?
I think with the community, yes.
I guess a lot of people would find it, like they wouldn't even be able to kind of look at that type of content because someone's being tortured or killed, and that's quite extreme and it's quite upsetting. Is it not upsetting when you watch it?
So I am naturally, like, depressed and suicidal, but I think in the end, like, it makes me a better person because I can empathize better.
I don't get how it can be empathetic.
I remind myself, like, anyone can die, and I should really be thankful for the people that I have right now.
It doesn't seem like it's great for your brain if you're regularly kind of putting yourself through these videos where people are being murdered, tortured. You said in some cases people are being beheaded.
If you're depressed and if you're hurting like that much, and if you're suicidal, your mind will go to anything to stop with the pain.
So, I guess you think about death a lot. Yes. That seems to be the theme. Have you ever thought about whether you could kill someone?
I would have to say, like, whenever I was extremely hurting, I did think about it, like, a few times.
In the dark and violent world of incels, there's not much that offers hope. The ideology itself is anti-hope. It pushes its hundreds of thousands of young and lonely followers into a state of despair. But in amongst this depressing story, there was a bit of hope, that incels could be brought back from the brink. I'd heard from D, the young British incel who hardly ever left his house. He said our conversations had made him reconsider what he wanted out of life. He suggested he wanted to leave the incel life behind. He wanted to feel happy and have real friends. To do that, he wanted to go on a night out.
So I'm just arriving in Southampton for what is possibly going to be one of the most unusual night outs of my life. Maybe that is a potential solution to all of this, just going out and meeting people. But it might also go terribly and then send them right back to where he began. How are you doing?
All right, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you very much. I'm actually quite excited.
Are you?
I've never done this kind of thing before, so...
I mean, what are you expecting?
I'm hoping that people will be able to shed light on a lot of the things I read on the internet, and I want to know if people in real life have those experiences, or if it's all just made up, or if it's all just baseless.
Mm-hmm. Look how many people are here, look.
Oh, wow. I think that's crazy to me. But
do you actually think that's crazy?
I think that's crazy, yeah, because the impression I have of the world is that there's basically no one in it.
You mentioned some questions you have. Mm-hmm. Do you want to kind of read me through some of them?
Yeah, totally. I've got questions I'm planning to ask.
As you've fully written them down?
Yeah, I've written down some questions. Just some basic questions, really, asking about the minimum male height. Is there a minimum male height, or is it the case you just have to be taller than her? Is it true that if you don't have a good body, no one will care if you have a good heart? Is there currently a male virgin epidemic going on in the world?
Because is that what it says in the forums?
Yeah, that we're in a time period of unprecedented male virginity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
They're things that people talk about, and I want to know what people in real life have to say.
I mean, I've got to be honest, you reading those questions it's actually really, I felt really sad.
Did it feel really sad?
Yeah, just because it's such a horrible way of seeing the world, isn't it? You know, like this so kind of definitive, and I can see how much you've thought about it. It's upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, what's the cure to that? The answer is experience. Is that the only answer there is? I guess we have to find out.
I guess we do.
Yeah, so we'll find out.
Yeah. How are you feeling about baring your face to the world?
Nervous. I feel excited.
Dee's in his early 20s, and this is the first time he's ever been near a bar or pub. It's a rare moment away from his computer.
When was the last time you saw this many people?
I mean, I don't remember. It's ages ago.
I suppose just explain the thoughts going through your head.
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to, I could be mean and say, like, oh, there's a Chad right there. We walked by.
Was he a Chad?
It was a Chad, yeah. We walked by a Chad, yeah.
Oh, is that how you're seeing it? You're seeing, like, okay, Chad.
Yeah, it was like categorization. I don't know if I should trust that as being all there are to people, but it exists. Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Are you just thinking that constantly with everyone who's strolling by? Like, okay, they fit into this part of the theory and this person fits there.
But yeah, I do see that when I look around, and I see the facial structures of people. I see like the bone things. I in my head, a little voice is critiquing every little bit of them.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about the idea of talking to a lady?
I mean, I think there might be even a little bit of a safety type concern in the sense of false rape charges. You could incite that, really. Well, from what I read on the internet, I read that it's unsafe to even be in the same room as like a woman without a third party.
So you think that there's a chance that as we're walking around here, you talk to a woman, she's just gonna accuse you of rape potentially?
Or maybe like beat herself up and then accuse like domestic abuse or assault, like to cause damage.
She might start like punching herself, and you'd be really scared that she was going to kind of accuse you of rape or domestic assault, and even go to the extent that she'd start self-harming in order to ascribe
to make
that to
an
you.
Assault claim on me. Yeah. Really? I mean, it is in my head because that's, I guess that's the mindset of the internet. So like an us versus them type of thing. It's the idea that it's the idea there's a oh my goodness.
Our chat had caught the attention of a group of women on the table next to us. Dee had never had a proper conversation with a woman in real life, and this felt like an opportunity to finally make him realize just how ridiculous his views were.
You're going to do an approach. You're going to be a Chad.
Explain why I'm being a Chad.
So you're going to go up and you're going to approach a woman in real life, and you're going to like spark a conversation. You're being a Chad behavior. You go up to them and you talk to them.
That's only something a Chad would do.
Yeah, because the idea is like the beta, the virgin, waits to be approached, whereas the Chad just goes straight for it. And
interesting.
It's just, you know, they don't wait to be approached. They don't need permission. They just go for it, ask for what they want. They very masculine, like direct.
Okay, all right.
I think maybe we should...
Sorry to interrupt, and feel free to say no. So, we're basically making a documentary, and I was wondering if you may be prepared to chat to us for a few seconds?
Yeah!
I suppose, explain a bit about your life.
I'm a NEET. Do you know what a NEET is?
No.
It's someone not in education, employment, or training. Okay. So they're kind of doing nothing with their life, basically. I suppose I want to ask, what do you think is the necessary traits, the necessary what are the necessary applications of being in a relationship? And does someone like that...
There's someone out there for everyone.
You think that?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Do you... So... If that's... Think about it. Hold on. No, consult.
Don't worry.
Consult the notes.
Yeah, I guess it's hard.
How much does height impact of a man impact how much potential they have to get a mate?
There's loads of short girls out there. I really wouldn't worry about it.
Do you think there's a preference, a shared preference that people have?
Everyone has their own type.
A lot of the people I know online, they talk about it, they say that if you don't have a good body, no one will care if you have a good heart. Do you think that's true?
I don't think it's true at all. I think what you need to do is get some time away from the computer.
I guess you can't use statistics to model everyone, and I guess there are outliers, and I guess there are a lot of outliers, and I
think maybe the takeaway is that there's hope.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, do you think there's hope, I suppose?
Absolutely.
You do? You think there's hope?
Absolutely.
Although it seemed Dee's eyes had been opened, it was also clear he was still clinging on to so much of the ideology of the Black Pill. He'd built his whole life on it. He was brainwashed by the conspiracy. It was hard to believe he could ever truly leave it behind for good. Back in Eastern Europe, I was with Em, the young femcell, and it seemed she had made her decision on what path she was going to take, and it looked like the ideology had won.
I am naturally going to be inclined to go to the negative side because, I've only ever really experienced the negative.
If I tried to force you to think of positive things, like things that you're excited about, like right now, are there any?
I don't see much reason to live.
I mean, it's hard because I can see that you're really hurt because of how life has been. I think the world's a nicer place than you think it is.
I mean, I don't think so. I don't think anything will change with my mindset.
I kind of look at you and see that there is a lot to be kind of excited about.
It never lasts forever. Life is cruel, life is dirty, I don't really like it here.
After we finished filming, we put Em in contact with a clinical psychologist to provide psychological support. I felt really upset that with a whole life ahead of her, she had convinced herself she was too ugly to be loved, that no one would ever care about her, and that there was no place in the world for her. None of this was true, but it was an example of the deceptive powers of the Black Pill ideology and the severe depression of those who follow it. And Em isn't an isolated case.
We know that the founders of the Incel Forum created a forum specifically for discussion of suicide. These are people who are vulnerable and already have poor mental health. Instead of receiving help and support, they get a diet of rage and despair. People are encouraging visitors to that site to commit suicide, and it's been linked to the deaths of dozens of young people.
Back in the UK, I'd heard again from Dee, a few weeks after our night out in Southampton. When I last saw him, Dee was struggling to balance the hard, fast and false ideas he'd learned on the incel forums with the realities of speaking to a woman in real life for the first time. I wanted to see if things had really changed.
What a view this is.
What a view. It's incredible.
So what are you up to? What's going on?
I'm just taking pictures of this gorgeous view here that I never actually seen before. Never actually come here to appreciate it.
How are you feeling since, obviously, in terms of this discovering new things? We obviously went out to Southampton and you interacted with men and women and you saw a whole new reality. Like, how are you now after that? Like, has it changed your mind at all?
I think it has. I think it's made me more hopeful now.
Really?
Yeah. I guess the takeaway truth from that is that the internet doesn't have all the answers. The internet can't predict everything. You can't model life after statistics. You have to go out there and see life for yourself.
I'm shocked. I am shocked. I mean, it's quite a journey, isn't it? You know, I mean, just seeing you go from the guy you originally were, which, you know, life seemed terrible, and you seem a lot more hopeful.
Yeah.
That there is an alternative.
I really think that the incel crisis is more of a hope crisis than anything. People want people. They want to feel connected. They want to feel part of something bigger than themselves.
Has it made you think a bit differently about love?
I suppose so, yeah. I used to think that
Why do you think this question's more challenging than the other questions?
Because it involves human nature, that's why.
The kind of crazy thing about that conversation with Dee is that, on the one hand, it is extremely simple. You know, these guys just need friends, they need human interaction, and they can break free of the ideology. But on the other hand, it's not simple at all. You know, in reality, one setback could change everything. And I'm a little bit scared to think about what his next phase of life is going to be when he realizes how complex it is.
We've seen incel terminology and culture become much more popular. It's less niche. And this is creating a more generalized misogyny. We need to be holding social media companies more accountable through large dosages of this type of content. Violent, hateful content becomes normalized for young people. They hear it and see it again and again and again, and it's through these processes that it can move off screens and onto streets.
The people I'd met were lonely and vulnerable, and the ideology they subscribed to is dangerous and fueled by anger at the world. They'd been told their feelings of loneliness and isolation were incurable, that they had no choice other than death or violence. Inceldom had given them a sense of community for the first time in their lives, but it had also radicalized them into believing that horrific things were normal. I felt a sense of sadness for the states they found themselves in, and fear for where they'd end up if they didn't get the help they needed. Help that had come not on the boards of internet forums, but through trained professionals and a real-world community.